Hi everybody, how are you all doing? MAW0001 with a live review video today. Seeing as there's no DC52s this week, and seeing as I just managed to get to my local comic book shop yesterday, I thought I'd do a live video today, live review video. And starting off is The Strange Talent of Luther Strode by Image Comics. This is number 2. This is shaping up to be a pretty interesting little mini-series. It's about a guy called Luther Strode who is basically a £90 weakling, and through certain disciplines and martial arts that he finds, that he sends away from a coupon at the back of a comic book, if I remember correctly from the first issue, he becomes this superhero. He isn't actually a superhero just yet, he's just finding out that he's getting these powers, and it's a really interesting comic. There's some quite funny scenes in it. There's quite a undertone of sort of a conspiracy theory sort of thing going on in it as well, which is quite good. And yeah, I think if you can pick up the first issue of this, I think a lot of people out there will probably enjoy it. It's quite a good book. And next from Image Comics, unfortunately, it's the last issue of Witch Doctor. I love this miniseries. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. There is a one-shot of this coming out, and I think it's in December. It's somewhere in this month it's coming out. This is issue 4 of Witch Doctor. This is the one where we find out how he escaped from the previous issue's cliffhanger. And again, it's a really funny comic. It's a really funny comic book. Really fun, really enjoyable to read. The artwork in it was really nice. And if you haven't picked up this miniseries, then I think it's coming out in trade right about January, February time, I think. Could be wrong, but I'm sure I saw it in the previews this month. Yeah, well worth picking up. If you can't get the 4 issues of the miniseries, well worth picking up on trade. And another one from Image. To tell you the truth, I don't think I've bought so many Image comics in the last, is it 20 years that Image has been around? And this next one is The Infinite Vacation. If you haven't read this one yet, it's basically works on the premise that parallel universes exist, and people go to parallel universes for holidays. They basically live the lives of their parallel selves in order to get away from the humdrumness of their main lives in the parallel universe, in the universe that they're in. This story revolves around a guy called Mark. Great name for a hero for a comic book, and he's been told that for some as yet still unknown reason, even though this is issue 3, his parallel universe selves are being murdered one by one. Have you seen the movie, the Jet Li movie, The One? It's a bit like that, but without the martial arts and without much of the action. You get to see the zombie or the cannibal parallel universe version of Mark in this one, where he eats himself. And there are other things that the cannibal Mark from the parallel universe does to himself, which I won't exactly go into detail on a YouTube video, but suffices to say, yeah, it's the sort of thing you'd probably see in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, or maybe even the film Deliverance. Yeah, but this is a fun story, a fun comic, and again, if you're not picking it up, I think you should really think about getting it, because it is a real good story. And we have the fourth comic from Image today, Mudman #1. And yeah, pretty good comic, pretty good story. Not quite sure what the actual origins of the superhero Mudman is at the moment, but it's about, as all #1 issues are about a guy in high school who he starts having dreams about getting stuck in mud, sinking in mud, almost drowning in mud, and he wakes up, you know, feeling pretty weirded out about him, obviously, as you would do, and then he finds in his attic, I believe it's his attic, he finds a costume, the one that he's wearing in this actual cover, and he dons the costume, and I'm trying to remember because I read this about a week ago. It was a really good story though. It's a really good story, and I think I will be picking up #2 of this when it comes out. The artwork in it's really nice, and yeah, I think if you can pick up #1, see if you can do it. Now what do we have here? Aha, this is another one I picked up. This is Superior. This is from the Kapow World Record Special. This is #1. It's a black and white sketchbook, and for those who don't know, Kapow is a new comic book convention that happens in London in the United Kingdom. It started this year, and it's run by Mark Miller, the guy who writes Superior, Kick-Ass. He also produces the monthly anthology comic Clint as well, and loads of other comics that you've probably all read. The next Kapow weekend, I believe, is in April. Hang on a second. This probably won't say on there now, but yeah, it's a comic book convention. Nope, sorry. 19th to 20th of May 2012 is the next Kapow convention, and I have to admit I don't actually know what the world record is that this comic book set. It's for a charity, the York Hill charity. I basically picked it up because it's to do with the Superior comic, you know, and it looked interesting, so I thought, yeah, why not? It's only $2.99. Well, $2.99. It's about £2.30 from my local comic book shop. Expensive, isn't it? But yeah, if you can find a copy of it, I think it'd probably be worth picking up, because it's one of those ones where it sort of like, it's a nice little sort of like souvenir comic, I imagine. Right, what do we have here? We have Jennifer Blood, #6, and this is the origin issue of Jennifer Blood. This is where we find out who Jennifer Blood is, why she does what she does, and yeah, it delves much more into her background before the events that started this whole comic series off, which was in issue 1, obviously. There is a really funny bit in here, which you can imagine it would be with Garfinas. Her neighbour thinks that she is a sadomasochist because he spies on her and sees her going out wearing all leather and that, and he thinks that she's a sadomasochist, and he follows her to her next hit, which is one of her uncle's homes, and her uncle is a mob boss, and when her neighbour finally confronts her as she's dressed up as Jennifer Blood, yeah, buy the comic, find out what happens, because it is hilarious. Okay, as you would expect from Garfinas. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. This is the final issue of this arc. It's an ongoing comic. I don't know how many issues it was going to be going on for. Usually Garth Ennis writes for around about 60 to 70 issues if he's doing a character that he's created. I think the Preacher comic that was done by DC Vertigo went for 66 issues, was it? 67 issues? The Boys is going for 70 issues, so I'm not quite sure how long this one will go for. Oh, just on a side note, I saw in the new previews issue, Dynamite, the characters that were in the last issue of this, the Ninjettes, they're getting their own series. Even though they died in issue 5 of this comic, they're getting their own series. So not written by Garth Ennis. I'm not quite sure who's writing the series of the Ninjettes, but I reckon it'd be pretty good as well to get. And then here we have Spaceman #2 by Brian Azzarello. I have to admit, I haven't read this one yet. I've got #1, and I have to admit, I haven't read that one either. I've been pretty busy, and usually I like to get miniseries, you know, get the first few issues and then read them in one hit. But it seems pretty interesting from the synopsis that I read in, you know, on the internet and previews and that. It does seem like a really interesting comic book. Brian Azzarello, you can't really go wrong with him in any case. But yeah, maybe in a future video I might do a bit more of an in-depth review on this comic. But yeah, it seems like pretty good comic. Alright. And next up we have Tiny Titans #46. And you just got to love the Tiny Titans. You've got to love them. They're absolutely brilliant. You can't go wrong. It's a fun comic. Yeah, I know it's for kids and that, but I don't care. I'm enjoying it. Absolutely great. And it's probably one of the cheapest comics you can get nowadays as well. I think it's about $2.50, is it? Oh no, it's $2.99, so it's not that cheap. They've upped the price. When did that happen? So, but yeah, Tiny Titans. It's one of those little, not so much guilty pleasures, but it's a nice little fun read amongst all the angst-ridden superhero comics and horror comics and adult comics that I read. And talking about angst-ridden comics, next one up is Red Skull Incarnate #5. Final issue of this miniseries. I like this miniseries. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. The artwork in it was really nice. The storytelling was just fantastic. You can see as the story goes on what a sadistic little person the Red Skull was when he was younger, and yeah, you can actually tell how the Red Skull gets the way he gets after he has the the things done to him to become the Red Skull. They bring in some bits of history from World War II, pre-World War II and World War II Germany, and yeah, it is a really interesting mini-series. If you're a Captain America fan, if you like the Red Skull, or even if you just are one of those people that like to read stories that are based on historic fact but have a slight, almost parallel universe, sort of like fantasy bent to it, sort of thing, then I think this is a really good mini-series. And finally, probably the best comic of the month, as far as I'm concerned, Daredevil #6. Mark Waid is just absolutely brilliant in this comic. He is taking the Daredevil to places that I think he hasn't been for quite some time, and it is putting the fun back in Daredevil. Really, I think previous issues of the old series of Daredevil have been quite dark, quite, again, angst-ridden, but this is really putting the Daredevil back to where he should be, a fun-loving superhero that gets the job done, and has fun doing it as well. And I think this is a brilliant comic. Absolutely brilliant. If you're not getting Daredevil yet, pick it up. You will not be sorry for doing so. Right. Well, that's the small review that I've got for this week. Like I said, not many DC comics in there. And yeah, hopefully I should be doing another video fairly soon of some pickups I've got. And also another video which I'm sort of working on. It's going to be a semi-regular thing where I actually go in depth into reviewing one specific comic. Okay, I'm sort of working on it, so we'll see how it goes. See what happens. So, if I can get up here. Thanks for watching. Thank you everybody who subscribed. Feel free to comment. Feel free to like. Feel free to use the little react button on there as well. Yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and ta-ta for now.